study is Sleeping Giant, and my name is Liang Xu. I'm going to talk about the first and the second questions. The first question is the risks associated with giants swept from an OEM to a brand. And the second question is the two most effective marketing research techniques could have been used for giants when entering Australian market.
Hey everyone, I'm Jing, and I'm going to talk about identifying the advantages and disadvantages in the global giant local touch, the program, in contrast with the direct export.
My name is Alexander Petkovic. I will be doing the last question. So I will first rank the most challenging factors that Giant had to face while they were entering the Australian market. And later I will explain how Giant overcame the saturation of local brands in Australia.
I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.
First of all, I will present the company Giant briefly. Giant is a bicycle manufacturing company from Taiwan, which was established in 1972. Giant actually used to be an OEM, meaning original equipment manufacturer, for brands like Schwinn. This means that Giant was not their own brand, at least not yet. Giant made it into the Australian market by overcoming many challenges. I will talk more about them later. Giant is also the leading imported brand in Australia, which is quite impressive. And moreover, they are the largest bicycle company in the world in terms of sales revenue.
For the answer of the first question, I'd like to add something in terms of internal and external perspectives. From the internal perspective, Giant gave up everything that it has been building, such as its client for whom they had been working for as an OEM, and in this case study, that was Schwinn. In 1980s, after the strike in USA, Giant became the key supplier, making more than 2/3 of Schwinn's bikes. This was a huge ratio, as we can see. But what did this ratio mean financially? It presented 75% of Giant's sales as an OEM. Yep, 75%. Not to mention other clients that Giant might have lost during the shift. So it was quite clear that losing this amount of revenue could easily lead Giant to a financial crisis. Besides, Giant also suffered from the brand image building issues back then, for there was no time for Giant to build its brand image, and this could lead to the result the brand Giant was totally new for local customers as well as those overseas customers, and this could be difficult for Giant to enter both markets. And from the internal perspective, Giant immediately became the competitor with all bicycle brands. And this process was quite turbulent because of the brand image building issues and financial crisis, as we have discussed. Besides, their goal is to take a share in the rapidly expanding $200 and above price range. The decision was probably based on the fact that Giant had been an OEM for Schwinn, but it was quite risky because the high-priced market could always be hard to entry. Meanwhile, Giant might have other issues back then, such as a financial crisis. The local market was quite a challenge to Giant shift to, because the local environment was not friendly in terms of political and economy. After 1980s, the role of Taiwan government in the economy gradually lessened because many government-owned operations which were privatized, and this act could make it more difficult for privatized corporations to find the capital. Thus, the competition of capitalism can be more fierce. And this was exactly the period that Gent decided to change from an OEM to a brand. For the second question, the two most effective international marketing research which could have been used during Gent's Australian market entry. I made my choice based on the purpose of general information collecting and the specific information collecting. For the general information collecting, I chose focus group. A focus group is a small but demographically diverse group of people and whose reactions are studied especially in market research, in guided or open discussions about a new product to determine the reaction that could be expected from the large population. Focus group allow companies to collect valuable information about the potential market acceptance of the product. And there are two key steps about this method. The first step is to form a group with about 8 to 12 people of target consumers led by a moderator. The second step is to generate information to guide the quantitative research projects, to review new product opportunities, to test out new product concepts, etc. In order to succeed in this method, we must pay attention to the three key points. The first one is the location. A professional space could be critical for blind studies in which the participants don't know what brand they are evaluating. The companies could always choose a community center, church, or school conference room. It basically means don't bring the participants in your conference room and offer them coffee. The second key factor is the moderator, because the whole process is basically led by the moderator. So the moderator must have a very solid knowledge of this method. So what does it mean? It means the moderator needs to learn the skills, of course, for how to conduct it, and develop an interview schedule. Also include a variety of exercises and creates a relaxed environment for those participants. And the third one is, of course, participants. For the best results, the participants of focus groups should be designed to the most various according to the product. In this case study, Gent leads to decide the model of bicycles for its Australian entrance and selects participants according to this product. And for the purpose of specific information, I have chosen survey methods for cross-cultural marketing research. And there are 5 steps, as you can see on the slides. And I'd like to add some information other than the 5 steps. The reason that I have chosen this method is because Australian market is obviously an overseas market, so it is essential to consider the cultural differences. Even though it is not very likely for a bicycle brand to run into cultural problems, but Gent still needed to consider the differences in terms of customer behavior or buying habits, so it could be prepared to the best. Thank you.
For the key advantages and disadvantages of this strategy in contrast with the direct export strategy, there are several aspects to mention. As long as the giant company created local subsidiaries, they would gain a better knowledge of a local market, quote, market share, client base, and cost, because they employed designers and marketers who know well about Australian market and culture, which direct export couldn't reach to. In order to ensure it paired the right products to the right customers, the firm provided high-end bicycles to suit customers' diverse needs and boost customer confidence. Through subsidiaries, the giant can interact directly with local people, which contribute to building a better customer loyalty. By the way, having a local office gives a great control of marketing and distribution. The direct interaction helps the company receive more real-time feedback so that they could react in time to keep the client satisfaction and improve credibility in marketplace. Between headquarters and local subsidiaries, the strategy has high coherence and coordination feature, which leads to efficient performance and better communication. Additionally, the subsidiaries could share market intelligence to headquarters to create profits on both sides, and the headquarters can also change business policies in order to adjust local market. For headquarters, it is vital to manage the brand wisely and carefully, because made in Taiwan was not appealing in the local dominated market. Add the fact that there was a limited availability of global brands to consumers because the market was completely dominated by local brands. It could also be a chance to become an avenue for attracting local venture capital. However, there are some drawbacks when it comes to the giant program. The first one is high transport cost, setup cost, and continuous expenditure on new products. However, in direct export, company avoids all the cost and confusion of a middleman to gain greater potential profits. They also have a greater degree of control over all aspects of transaction. Even it is true that we know well about customer needs, there still are some risks in launching the program, such as people's willingness to consume the products, competitors' reaction when they step into market, brand popularity, and quote. But in direct export, for each decision and mistake they made, the company is accountable, which means there is no buffer zone for them to save the situation because the brand hasn't built up customer trustworthy at local, so any mistakes could be magnified in people's mind. This could also lead to credit risk in local market. For example, if a company enters a foreign market through a wholly owned subsidiary, it has to rely on the subsidiary to develop a distribution channel, recruit a sales force, and establish a customer base. In other words, success depends entirely on the subsidiary's execution. The operational risk is concentrated in one company rather than spread across multiple entities.
A wholly owned subsidiary usually operates independently of its parent company, with its own scenario management structure, products, and clients, rather than as an integrated division or unit of parents. However, the parent company can still maintain significant control over the strategic direction of subsidiary, so there's still limited freedom. Management may have to make major decisions, whether involving products, finance, or other major topics. Last one is the firm is missing out on expertise such as a joint venture because there isn't any necessity to create partnership with local contacts.
I will now rank the most challenging factors that Giant had to face while they were trying to enter the Australian bicycle market. First of all, Australia perceived Giant as a short-term, bad quality product brand. They believed that Giant's material were of inferior quality and just not built to last. Also, the label made in Taiwan is perceived negatively, not only in Australia, by the way, in the whole world. So this led to Giant having a negative image and therefore a bad reputation from the start. Second of all, Australia was actually the first country in the world to implement a mandatory bicycle helmet law, which means that cyclists had to wear a helmet at all times. And this constraint actually led to a decrease in the number of cyclists. Moreover, the third point now, specific helmet standards had to be met. So you couldn't just wear any helmet, you had to have a specific helmet. This meant that helmet importers in Australia had to test the helmets, which cost them a lot of money. And this cost was absorbed in the unit cost of helmets that consumers would pay, which means that a normal helmet in Australia was even more expensive because of the testing. The last main challenge that Giant had to overcome was the fact that many Australians would buy their bicycles online. This meant that there was a smaller market for Giant and therefore potentially less clients. Some consumers want a mountain bike, others could want a road bike, or others could even want a bicycle for their kids. So Giant was ready to provide all of those different products, and this gave them a competitive advantage. Point number 4 is the fact that Giant implemented the so-called Global Giant Local Touch philosophy. This means that they actually opened subsidiaries in Australia and they hired local designers and marketers in order to have an expert knowledge of the Australian market to have better sales results. So they could know exactly what the consumers needed and how to manufacture bicycles accordingly. And this would help them really make a name for themselves in Australia. The 5th point is the fact that they sponsored renowned Australian cyclists and triathletes. This helped them get closer to the public because many people in Australia would know who those athletes were, and this was good publicity for the Giant brand. The 6th point is the Real Riders campaign that was used to promote casual cyclists as heroes. So any person who used a bicycle would feel valued because they would actually be doing something good for the planet, a good action to promote awareness and to help planet sustainability. all in all, we can say that Giant used innovation and adaptability to build a unique and high-end international brand, which proved to be very successful in Australia. Giant actually holds at least 50% of the Australian market share. So that's very impressive to hold more than half a country's market.